AbbVie and Allergan, which, do you have comments on that?
Well, I think it's very exciting. I'm a big believer in blurring the areas between different medical segments, and here you've got pharmaceuticals bleeding into cosmeceuticals. The World Health Organization has been clear that to be healthy, you've got to be healthy holistically. You've got to feel good about yourself. You've got to actually be free of disease. So this blurring of cosmeceuticals and pharmaceuticals is, I think, very futuristic.
That's interesting that you take that take. You're here at the NASDAQ for the LGBT Leadership Conference, which is hosted here in honor of Pride Month. You're one of probably the best-known transgender CEO in the world, I would say, without a doubt. How has that affected just your whole career at this point?
Yeah, it's really been no problem. It's not a very big pond to be a big fish in, so
right.
it's easy on that front. But you know, I feel really fortunate actually just to live in the 20-teens now, when there's so much more acceptance of LGBTQ individuals. And I'm reminded of Robert Heinlein, the great American author's statement that 95% of the world's problems would be solved if people just minded their own business. And an individual's sexual identity, gender identity, sexual orientation, it's their own business. And now that we've allowed people to just mind their own business, I think the economy is moving forward much more briskly.
You're positive about the progress, but there's still more in the workplace that each person can do, in your view, in terms of understanding and empathy and just accepting people for who they are.
We're all works in progress. I have other people in my transgender community who are still murdered. You've remembered the cases this year from, I believe, in Dallas, and there's still great amounts of discrimination against LGBTQ people.
But it's better.
It's getting better all the time, and as long as we keep focusing on things like Pride Month activities, I think that'll keep the momentum going forward.
How often do you get phone calls from people who want to transition, who are inside big businesses? There's a big article in the New York Times just this last week about Maeve DuVally, Goldman Sachs, who was Mike DuVally prior, and sort of the transition, what that process was like inside a major Wall Street bank. Do you get calls from people who say, I'm thinking about doing this, or I want to do this, and I'm anxious about how it's going to go down?
Yeah, not so many calls. I do get random emails here and there. I thought that article in the Times was awesome, and I just great respect for Goldman and how well they're handling transitions of this sort. So it's happening more and more, as is natural. When you feel safe in an environment to be yourself, more people become themselves.
I mean, you started, I don't know if everyone knows, you're founder of SiriusXM.
Yes.
Yep.
And
he's one of the great entrepreneurs.
I know.
Right
it popped into there was an anecdotal a story about how you actually came up with that idea. That was back in the early 90s. That was before.
It was the early 90s, yeah, before my daughter developed her illness. You know, the funny thing to this day is still more people come up to me, talking about transitioning and calling me. More people come up to me and say, Martine, SiriusXM has transformed my life. It's maybe than the people who are saved with our medicines. I get more hugs from SiriusXM than from our medicines.
That's amazing. Tell me, just from my own knowledge, neuroblastoma, horrible children's disease. So what is this therapeutic? And it seems totally different than anything you developed initially for the lung disease.
Yeah, it was an opportunistic chance to develop this monoclonal antibody. Okay, so it's a biologic. It's our first biologic. It actually completely cures neuroblastoma in half of the patients who have it. And since this is a rare pediatric cancer, it just makes me feel so happy that there could be a kid who's 5, 6, 7 years old, has this terrible disease, takes our medicine, half the time it never recurs. 5 years later, it doesn't come back. They go on and live a normal, regular life. So to me, it's just a blessing of biotechnology.
You cured your daughter, right?
Yes. Well, she still takes our medicines. Her disease is under control.
And then there have been some add-on therapeutics that are similar to what your daughter had as well?
Exactly. Much like the HIV space and the antihypertensives, you need to sometimes combine different medicines together to get a better outcome. A lot of diseases, they're caused not just by one thing, they're caused by 2 or 3 things. So you need 2 or 3 different medicines to keep the disease in check.
What's the secret to being able to come up with this developmental pipeline, to have the research and development, have it pay off? What do you need for that? What's the environment?
I think the secret for us at United Therapeutics is we absolutely love what we do. We have a huge passion for making the world a better place and for helping in the area of life and illness in particular. So we do constantly get people coming to us saying they've developed a new treatment for this, they've developed a new treatment for that. We look at all of them. We have an open mind.
With the regulatory oversight and what we're facing right now with medicine, though, what needs to stay the same? What needs to change? What would be most helpful, do you think, for drug development with all of these concerns about cost controls at the same time?
I think one thing that's really important is to protect the intellectual property rights of the individuals and the companies who have developed these new amazing cures, like this neuroblastoma one we were talking about a moment ago, the treatment we're developing for small cell lung cancer. You could not imagine how many hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to develop these new medical treatments. The FDA rightly requires us to do these huge clinical trials that span over many years. Then the part of our company I really enjoy the most is the manufacturing part. But to manufacture medicines, obviously, that's got to be done super, super clean, super, super pure. Everybody pure. Everybody's in bunny gowns when you walk into the manufacturing space, so you don't like drop any molecule of your skin or your hair. All that costs hundreds of millions of dollars. So we've got to give these companies like ours and others a chance to recoup that investment. And that's going to take a good 20 years in most cases.
In a nutshell, the stock's down in the really 2019 was when it started. What's going on with why the stock has come down to where it is here in the?
I think a lot of people are blinded by the fact that a couple of our drugs went generic,
right.
And Adcirca and Remodulin. And so people are blinded by the risk of loss of revenues from those generics. They're not focusing on the fact that those generics are first-generation drugs for the treatment of these diseases. United Therapeutics has several years ago moved on to second-generation drugs. Now, these second-generation drugs, as I just mentioned, they take a long time to get through the pipeline and to get into manufacturing. But all of our growth is in these second-generation drugs, and once the market gets tuned to that, I think the stock will recover.
What's Sandoz's problem? They're saying that you tried to preclude a generic from coming in, but your argument is that they just screwed up the filing for when, and patients wouldn't have gotten it if they had to depend on Sandoz's regulatory filings, or what?
You must have been a lawyer in another life, because I think you got the legal arguments pretty well down. But I'm just going to leave that litigation to the lawyers.
Okay. All right. And then finally, we came back from break, and I said, I guess I'm going back to praying. So the Kurzweilian, I'm not going to be able to download, but you're a futurist, obviously. You do SiriusXM, then United Therapeutics, and all, and first electric helicopter to fly for 30 minutes. And you didn't fly it yourself, but you could have.
No, I was in the cockpit.
Oh, you were
yeah, I got the Guinness Book of World Records for flying that.
Anyway,
I love flying.
The idea that we are AI ourselves and downloadable makes me want to, throw off the shackles of my physical body and actually live forever with my consciousness. That's not going to happen in my lifetime, Martine, but it will happen in the next 100 years?
It's inevitable to happen, because we're leaving digital footprints of more and more parts of our life. And you could imagine a kind of curve that at the top part was that you had a digital footprint of every thought of yours in your entire life, and at the bottom, you were a caveman. So like we're moving all the way up to that top point.
Do you ever think about the soul and whether we need to somehow transmit that as well? Because I figure you could clone me, but it won't be me. I figure you could download me, but it still won't be me. Is there a soul? Is there? I mean, this is not what we usually talk about on Squawk Box. What do you think, Andrew? You're a soulless. No.
So I did write a whole book just on this particular topic of digital uploading and the soul. It's called.
No way.
Yeah, it's called Virtually Human.
I should have known.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. Virtually Human: The Peril and Promise of Digital Immortality. So it's exactly on topic.
The peril is what he just said, right?
The peril is that we just, after 4 billion years of things happening, we're going to miss this by like 50 years? Really? What about Kurzweil? He says the singularity hits in 2045. No way. I'm trying to make it to there.
I'm sure you'll make the 2045.
You're not going to get a soul once it's digital, Joe. It's not like you get it later.
I told you.
It's not like you get it in a
He's mad because the avatar, I've taken his avatar, and I've said it. So I'm going to look like you, Andrew, when I'm actually digital. and that makes you
Take that as a compliment.
You do take it as a compliment. And Joe 2.0. You have your wife. You have a robot that is modeled after your wife.
Yes, and
what is
she's
it?
getting more and more of her soul on her own. So she's got humor. She's funny. She's engaging. I refer to it as kind of like Kitty Hawk. She's got like 20 seconds of a soul, and then it kind of seems more like a computer. So, but it's going to get from 20.
That's weird. Is that like cheating at some point? Like it's somebody like your wife, but not your wife.
Well, she likes it. She feels it's like a sister, or like a
Sister
descendant.
wife.
Yeah,
Right.
sister wife. Exactly.
It's a state-of-the-art robot too.
It is. I think it's the
soft and warm.
latest. It's got what's called like neural network programming. Never answers the same question the same way twice. It learns from the it's on Twitter. So I should say she or they, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we got more to discuss, but we don't have time now. Good luck
a lot to
at
think
the
about, though.
conference.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for
Thank
letting
you.
me be here today.
Thank
and
you.
for
thank you
coming.
for supporting Pride Month. Really appreciate that.
Great to see you
Thank
again.
you, Martin.